Welcome everyone. We should be live. Let me know in the chat that you can hear me properly. We are live from Stoke Newington in Hackney in northeast London. Hi Tish, nice to see you here. So if any of you were completely new to me, if you don't know what's happening, this is a live walk, but we've got 10 minutes before to start. We're just waiting for everyone to connect in the live chat. So if you were watching the replay in the next few weeks or days or years, who knows, you might want to skip the next 10 minutes. We're not going anywhere for 10 minutes. We're literally just waiting for everyone to connect. And let me flip this camera around to give you a glimpse of the view. And welcome back, Mike. And Sandy, welcome. And let's see who I've missed. Hi, Pisas. And Marilyn and Laurie, welcome everyone. Can you hear me well? So we are in the beautiful Clissold Park and we've got about 9 minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. And welcome Tanzian. Some of you know the drill already. I'm going to have to tap the microphone. I'm going to tap it 3 times. You let me know in the chat whether you've heard it properly. You should have heard the triple tap. Hey Linda, nice to see you here. Hi honey, and welcome everyone that just joined. And bonjour Marianne. Hi Cindy. And Genevieve, nice to see you here. Did you hear the triple tap? With the microphone, there's always a chance of things getting disconnected or a little bit of dust. So that's why I always double check before to go anywhere. And hello Catherine, nice to see you here. We've got a few minutes before to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. You've heard it faintly. Ooh, that shouldn't be faintly. I mean, maybe I didn't tap as hard as I usually do, but let me just check. Right. Let me know if you've heard this one better. So we've got a few minutes to go. About 5, I think. Let's see. 7 minutes before we officially kick off. And good morning, Wendy. Nice to see you here. Hold on. What do you mean by out of sync? Do you mean my lips are not moving when I'm talking? Or do you mean you have any other kind of mixed sounds on? You can tell it's not as loud. Okay, I'm just gonna unplug the mic and put it back on. Me. Right, let me know if that's any better, any different. My volume is always the loudest. I think it's probably just my voice, because I'm used to shouting to during my tours, because I never use those little at work when I have large groups, you know, when I take people down to Buckingham Palace, it's like groups of 30. I'm meant to use one of those little radio devices, but I don't. I prefer to shout. So I'm probably just a bit loud anyway. Right, let me know if it's any better. I'm gonna gracefully stand up. Sometimes it can just be a bit of dust in the microphone cable. And also you should not hear any wind. If you hear any wind, it's not good. Hi, Sarah. I don't understand why the sound is delayed. It might just be the signal, because that's not, that doesn't usually happen. Oh, it's okay now. Perfect. Thank you, Marilyn. So we've got a few minutes to go. We're just waiting for everyone to connect. And let me show you the view already. I'm still out of sync. I don't know what could provoke that. It could be the signal. Maybe the visual information is going first or something. Right, good. Well, if it's barely noticeable, the thing is, the minute I'm gonna flip the camera around, you won't see it anymore, because you won't see my lips moving, so we should be all good. But if you do hear some kind of wind noises or any nasty grizzling or anything, let me know. I'm in sync for you. Good, good, pieces. That's odd that it's different for different people, but hey ho, we'll do with it. Let me flip the camera around again so you can enjoy the view. Thank you, Sarah. I have no idea what could do that effect, but hopefully, because most of the time I'm just a voice off, it doesn't really matter, I suppose. Unless I start pointing at people and telling you about what they look like, but I don't usually do a lot of people watching anyway. So when it comes down to the story, it shouldn't really matter. How is the air quality? It's fine. I mean, I don't know about the pollution level, but it's the weather is nice today. It's not hot. You know, we're no longer in the heat wave. This is a nice, you know, British summer day, but it's not too warm. And welcome, One Tech Adventures. Nice to see you here. Welcome, Carolyn. Let's see how many minutes we've got left. 1 minute to go. So 1 minute before it's officially time to start. And it is indeed a beautiful day, a beautiful Sunday. It's very busy in the park. I was worried it could actually influence my signal, because usually we've done this walk before, but it's not usually that busy. But obviously, Sunday in the summer, a lot of people are out and about enjoying the sun. +30 Celsius for you in Canada. It's not even 30 now here. It's not bad. Well, it's a bit chilly here in the shade, but it's nice in the sun. Right, let's see if it is time to go. It is officially time to start. It is 6:15 UK time, and without further ado, let me flip the camera around and let's go. Hi, Janie. And welcome, Suzanne. No, perfect timing. We're just starting right now. Right, we are in the beautiful Clissold Park. The building straight ahead, well, you've got the church, but we'll go and see the church in a moment. The building straight ahead, that is Clissold House. It was a little cafe, but it looks like it's been blocked up. It might be closed at the moment. The park itself, it's a beautiful park. It's like the Lums of Stoke Newington. And you know, we're very lucky in London in terms of green open spaces. We've got over 400 parks as such, but we've got about 3,000 green open spaces. Wherever you live in London, you shouldn't be more than a few minutes away from a green open space. But, you know, sometimes we take them for granted, when actually not all of them were always public. Some of those places used to be private, and sometimes people have been fighting for us to have the right to use them. And this is definitely the case here. This used to be private land. Clissold House was built, it was originally called Paradise House, and it was built by a guy called Jonathan Hoare. I didn't say any naughty word. Hoare, Hoare, Jonathan Hoare, not W. He was a banker actually, and he built a home down here. He bought this piece of land, and he built a home that he called Paradise House. And eventually he sold it to another family. The other family, the daughter, Eliza, I think her name was, she fell in love with the priest from the church next door. Her dad was not impressed. That was actually quite romantic. They were sending each other little notes over the gates and everything. And like the Romeo and Juliet of their days. And eventually they got married. They ended up with the property. And after them, the property ended up in the possession of her nephew, and he sold it to the church commissioner. They had already kind of started to do openings, you know, people could come and enjoy the land every so often, but it wasn't public yet. There's a Quaker called Joseph Beck that actually started to fight for it to become public. So he tried to get a lot of donations from the different local authorities, and he was fighting for years and years to try to raise the money. So it is thanks to him that today we can enjoy this beautiful park. Hi Colin, and welcome everyone. So the park today is known as Clissold Park. Clissold was the name of the priest, the one that was in love with Eliza. And here are the deers. We're very lucky because they're quite close to us today. Sometimes they're a bit further down. Let me show you the fallow deers. Look at them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold on. 6. They're all waiting for us. Let me try to pop the camera into a little hole so that we'll focus better on our friends. Hello! They are almost blind by human standards. They can see the movement, but they've got very good hearing, so they should be able to hear me. Hi guys! Yeah! The fallow deers, those spotted deers, we believed for a long time that they had been introduced by the Normans, you know, William the Conqueror and all that. And they did bring quite a few with them. But apparently, let's find another angle from here. Apparently, there's new DNA evidence that it's the Romans that first brought them to the UK. Because they're not native, but let me try to focus. There we go.
They have to sleep in reindeers.
They're cute. They're probably digesting right now. They have a 4 chambers stomach, you know, like the cows really. So they kind of chew and then kind of spit it out and chew again. And right, let's leave them behind. Bye guys. Bye. We used to have some goats as well down the other side, but I've not seen the goats in a while. I don't know what happened to the goats. I had brought some little carrots to give to the goats, but they're not here. Although you're not really meant to feed them, but I guess as long as it's carrots or vegetables, it's fine. Let me try to give you another view on this one from here. So I'm just struggling to do the focus. There we go. So that's one of the beauties of Stoke Newington, is that you've got all those deers. obviously those ones are in captivity. That's why I've got to go behind the railings. They're quite tall, those railings, because the deers, they can actually jump. They can jump up to 2 meters, so that's why they've got those high railings. You've got some parks, like in Richmond Park, where they're not in captivity, they're free, but usually they don't really stand that close to you anyway. Oh, we've got 2 more down here. Hello! Do you want to come and say hello to the camera? Let's try to give you a little angle from here as well. I'm just gonna pop the lens down here. Bear with me. There we go. Hiya! They're chilling in the shade and digesting. Yeah, they're so cute. Okay, let's go, because we've got quite a long way to go, and that we can use. I really need a new phone, but that's for another day. Now, the park itself, it is at the border of different boroughs. That's why when Joseph Beck tried to save the park, he had to. At the time, you were at the border of South Horsley, Islington and Stoke Newington, I think. So we were at the border of 3 boroughs. You might know, until 1965, London had many more local authorities. It was divided into 86 districts. They were pretty much like the parish churches, really, the church parishes. And eventually in 1965, they were some of them were batched together, and they even added a bit more on the outskirts, like in Kent and Surrey. So 1st of April 1965, a lot of people woke up living in London, and it was a bit of a patchwork of. It was a lot of work to put those boroughs together, because some of them didn't really want to be matched together, and also they had to come up with new names. In theory, they shouldn't have gone with like Kensington and Chelsea, for example. For example, East Ham and West Ham became Newham. They were not meant to keep both names. Although Kensington and Chelsea, they do whatever they want because they are rich. Anyway, let me show you the whatever is left of the New River, and we've got another view on Clissold House from here. So this is no longer a river. Nowadays it's like a pond. The New River, it's a bit confusing because it's not new, and it was never a river anyway. It was dug from the reservoirs. We've got some big reservoirs above the park. It was meant to supply the area of Angel with first. So that's actually quite old. They have a deer in Greenwich. Those royal parks, they often had a deer park, because the deers, they had been they were basically imported by the king. Used to go hunting the deers in Hyde Park, but they would literally bring them to then be able to kill them. Anyway, let me show you. We should see an old boundary marker down there, just behind. We were just talking about the different parishes, and the New River, by the way, doesn't go any further. So it's basically stopped down here. Oh, actually, it's very bushy today. I don't think we'll see much of my boundary markers. I always walk my route before the tour, but I didn't check the visibility. Right, let me try to pop my hand in so you'll see a bit. But see those kind of stones there? Those are the old boundary markers between Stoke Newington at the time, and South Horsley and Islington. It's nice to find those little relics of the past. Now let's go and take a look at the church. We've got two churches, actually, two St. Mary's churches right next to one another. This is the modern one. This one was built by George Gilbert Scott. Not to be confused with Giles Gilbert Scott. Giles was his grandson. They were all architects in the family, the son as well, and I think the great-grandsons as well. But George Gilbert Scott, that's the one you might know because of the Albert Memorial, you know, in Hyde Park. And Giles, his grandson, that was the one that you probably know because of the red telephone boxes. You know, the K2 telephone boxes that were inspired by a monument, actually, a headstone in St. Pancras Cemetery. So all the same family. It's the same as the one that did St. Pancras station as well. So all the same family. Thank you, Janie. That's very much appreciated. With those tours, I really rely on your generosity. So thank you so much. Now, let's go and see the other church, the little one, the old St. Mary's Church, which is not really used as a church anymore. The recent one, this one definitely is a local parish church, but the old Elizabethan one is more used as a little place for... Apparently at some point years ago, they had a bit of a... Did you see an animal on the roof? I think I saw something on the roof. They had a bit of flooding, and they with the coffins. So you've got the graveyards around the building, of course. It's still kind of floating. I mean, going underground. And apparently, some of the coffins from the graveyard ended up floating down the basement of the church. Now, Stoke Newington was really a village of visionaries. You know, Joseph Beck, for example, the guy that tried to save the park. He was, all those Quakers, they were actually quite ahead of their time in terms of mental health and green spaces and all that. And a lot of them were also abolitionists. This guy here, James Stephen, he was an abolitionist, and he was actually fairly successful. So they had already abolished slavery in Britain, so here, but sadly it still happened in the colonies, so in the Caribbean mainly. And he wrote, so he was a writer, and he managed to convince people that abolishing slavery was actually patriotic. So he basically wrote a book in 1802 called The Crisis of the Sugar Colonies, in which he claimed that it was ridiculously stupid to still sell those, basically free manpower to the French, you know, the enemies. So he actually had a very big impact, and is one of the people we can thank for finally abolishing slavery abroad as well as on British floor. Now, let me show you my favorite headstone in this little graveyard. We don't know much about it, but it looks quite cool. It's quite far as well. They very often had those skulls on headstones to remind you that one day you'd be judged. To remind you'd be judged as well. You'll die and you'd be judged. I cannot say it. Judged as well. Now, this little headstone, there's a little bit of a personal story here. One day years ago, I was when I started tour guiding. Sometimes in the winter, I didn't have enough work, so I would do agency work. You know, whatever it might be, like promotion jobs. And one day I was on a job here. You know, I would work with people for a 4-hour shift and then never see them again. And I worked with this young lad from East London, and he said, "Oh, you're a tour guide, hold on, let me show you something, you're gonna love it." And he took me down to this grave. And he said that his granddad told him that it was the grave of a witch, that the lady had been accused of witchcraft, and she had been buried here, and that the church unconsecrated this very little piece of land. That's it. I don't know much more. that's just a story. You know, I don't know if there's any truth behind it. I wasn't able to find any information about the person buried there. But one of my followers, you might remember him, Richard, from London, he was able to find the burial records, and he believes it might be the grave of a lady called Mary Webb. She would have died in 1768. Now, Mary Webb, born Oakley, she was the wife of the innkeeper, the Three Crowns down the road. Now, in 1758, 68, sorry, you didn't have any witchcraft accusations anymore. You know, the witch hunt was over. After an act of parliament, you were no longer allowed of accusing people of witchcraft. I think that was in 1735. But, you know, people don't forget, you know, the culture and the collective memory stays the same. So she could have very well been suspected of witchcraft 30 years later, although it was no longer a crime. And because she was the wife of the innkeeper, historically, innkeeper ladies have often been accused of witchcraft, you know, of maybe doing some potions and poisoning the food and so on. So maybe there might have been some truth behind so you could hire it for weddings or whatever it might be. Sandy, no, I did not enable the jewel gift. In and out. Okay, I'm gonna say nothing until exactly Tish. It might be the witch. She might not enjoy us talking about her. That's probably what happened. We seem to be back. Perfect, Sandy. Good. So Sandy, I don't know if you heard my answer about the jewel gift, but basically no, not for now. I don't really see the point. But if you see any benefits, let me know, maybe in private. Right, cool. We are back. So we are on Stoke Newington Church Street, and let me show you a lovely little post box. You can see VR. So that's for Victoria Regina. So the post box, the red box, is at least 130 years old. And down there, so this is all private, but this is a former little mews. So those would have been stables at some point. Now, Stoke Newington Church Street, it used to be known as Church Street, that's it. But after the Second World War, the postal services, they realized that they had way too many high streets on Church Street, so they actually renamed a few of them. So this one is now known as Stoke Newington Church Street. It's a lovely little street because you have very few chains. There's a Nando's straight ahead, that's Nando's. There's Whole Foods, Foxton maybe, the estate agent. But apart from that, there are very little chains, so it's mainly independent shops. So that's nice to have still a little street with those authentic, burger places, coffee shops, whatever it might be, that you might not see everywhere across the country. And let me cross over to show you a beautiful Bansky. I'm gonna have to get behind the vegetation down here, because otherwise you won't see anything. Now, Bansky today is, of course, a massive street artist, very well known. But this is one of his early work. See I'm gonna zoom in a bit. This is meant to represent the royal family on the balcony, the famous balcony at Buckingham Palace. And this, would you believe, so that dates back to, that was 2001, I think it was. And that was there for many years. It looked a bit different at the time. Let me show you what it would have looked like. So at the time, you could see the full balcony and everything. And what happened is, in 2009, the city council, they wanted to repaint it. At the time, Hackney had quite a strict policy in terms of graffiti. Now, maybe not so much, because that brings a lot of tourism as well. Now it's a bit of a hipster area with a lot of street art and all that. But at the time in 2009, they wanted to repaint it. And they sent a letter to the landlady, but they had a wrong address. So the landlady did not actually receive it. And one day they sent the contractors, you know, they were sent by the city council, and they started to repaint it. When local people and the landlady, they run, they're like, what are you doing? This is a Bansky. So that's why they managed to save the characters in the middle, but the rest of it has been repainted in black. And the Bansky might look quite familiar because, I'll show you why. You might have seen it on an album cover. So that inspired the Blur album, Crazy Bits. So that's why it might look familiar, even if you've not seen the piece of art yourself. Now let me show you a pub, the Red Lion. That's a cool pub. They used to do stand-up comedy upstairs. I've done a gig there myself. The Red Lion, we had at some point 600 Red Lion pubs in the country. I think we're down to 500 something now, because you might know we're losing a lot of pubs, sadly. People don't drink as much as they used to, and the rent are getting a bit more expensive. So we're losing quite a few pubs, but we still have quite a few Red Lions. There are a few reasons why. First, the Red Lion, it's a very good name for a pub to, back in the day, a lot of people did not know how to read and write. So if I invited you to meet me at the pub at the Red Lion, if you didn't know how to read, you could check the illustration, and if you saw a red lion, you knew you were at the right place. So that was a very easy name to illustrate. But also, the lions have always been a very royal symbol. Because, a lot of the pubs before the Reformations, they would have some very Catholic names, like the St. Peter's or the Ark. And after Henry VIII broke up with the Catholic Church, some of the pubs rebranded. And very often, if the pub was called the Ark, they'll go with the boat. Or if it was the St. Peter's, well, they might as well change to the Duke of this, the Duke of that, or the Red Lion, because that's a very royal symbol. I did not actually clean my foot, by the way. It's just to show you that there's another one of those old boot scrappers. So if you came down from your horse in the muddy streets of George and London, you could have scrapped your boots before to go in. Now, talking about George and London, this little building across the street there, today it's probably a fancy apartment. I don't even know how much you'd pay to live in there, but it's a nice location. But back in the day, there was a parish lockup. You can still see the little bars and everything. So, before to have the Metropolitan Police in 1829, you had those local parish, parish constable, or those guys that were volunteering to catch the thief. And if you were caught, you'd be placed in there for a night. The person that caught you probably would have got a bit of money, and then the next morning you'd be sent to the magistrate. So that was the local parish lockup, where you'd spend the night if you were maybe drunken and disorderly on the street, or if you were committing any local crimes. Now let's go down towards the beautiful Abney Park cemetery. So we're still on Church Street, so you can probably see a lot of little pubs and independent cafes and restaurants and shops. There's another gentleman that used to live here, Daniel Defoe. Defoe was also a bit of, so we know him from Robinson Crusoe, of course, a famous writer, but he was also a bit of a dissenter in terms of religion. And he was actually pilloried for one of his writings. So, they put him in the pillory, and people would have been meant to throw rotten tomatoes at him or whatever. But apparently people liked him, so they didn't send him a lot of crap. this little pub. I've never actually been, but it's meant to be a great Irish pub, the Shillelagh. They say it's the best pub, the best Irish pub outside of Ireland. Although all the Irish pubs actually say that, but yeah. And you won't be able to see from here, but there's a little blue plaque, see, between the condemned windows, you know, remember? Window tax. We spoke about that in some of my tours before. The little blue plaque, that's for Daniel Defoe, so that's where he used to live. And down here you've got one of those, you know, those new post boxes with the solar panels. So again, we've explained that before, but that's basically for you to be able to post a parcel without going to the post office. You can pay on an app, print the label, and pop them in. And the solar panel is actually to power the scanner. A great system if you have a printer. I don't have access to a printer, so I'd have to queue at the post office, I'm afraid. But that's quite convenient for people that maybe sell items on Etsy or on eBay or Vinted or whatever it might be, you know, because if you have to send parcels quite often, it's probably easier to do it yourself and not queuing at the post office. Although it's probably again stealing somebody's jobs, because then they probably need less people at the counter at the post office. But hey ho. Yeah, the Good Egg, that was a good name. Right, sorry about the noise. And let's go towards the cemetery, but first we'll go across to the other side of the wall. I want to show you a little piece of art in the wall from an artist you might recognize. We saw one of his, when we went down to the canal, you know, by Angel, we saw a little piece of what he calls brick flats. So it is an artist that whenever he spots a brick being missing in a wall anywhere in town, he would actually create a little piece of art that fits perfectly the size of a brick, and I suppose it's not even that illegal, because he doesn't really damage anything. It's not like if he was removing the bricks, you know. He's quite popular on Instagram and everything. I'll show you. It's right here. So see, they were missing a brick here. So that's his Instagram if you wanted to follow him, Brick Flats. So it's quite original. There's another one that did that recently in Shoreditch with, there's a brick that was missing, but it's on ground level. It's very, very difficult to see, but it's, they've done a mini art gallery in a brick. But the thing is, you'd have to be laying on your tummy on the floor to see it properly. So it's much easier when it's like this one at eye levels. Now, let's go into Abney Park Cemetery. It went through a lot of refurb in the last 3 years now. See this little ramp for people with a wheelchair? That wasn't there at the time. Back in the day, you would have to go all the way down to the other side. So that's probably very convenient for some people. Although, apart from the ramp, I have to confess, I actually liked it better before. It is a bit more organized now, and I think they've removed a few broken headstones as well, sadly. But I still love it. It's a nature reserve as well as a Victorian cemetery. So it is part of the Magnificent Seven. You know, we talked about those Magnificent Seven before. They were those commercial cemeteries that were opened on the outskirts of London when London started to struggle to cope with the amount of dead people in Victorian times, you know. Because with the Industrial Revolution, a lot of people moved into the capital, and those little burial grounds that were by the local churches, they were completely saturated. So they had to find a solution. So, you know, Abney Park, Highgate, West Norwood, Tower Hamlet. I should take you down to Tower Hamlet again soon. It's been a while. They're part of those 7 magnificent cemeteries. This one was the first non-denominational. So this is not a Church of England consecrated cemetery. It is for any denomination. That meant that you had a few Quakers or different Christian church, including the Salvation Army. This is the tomb of their founder, William Booth, as well as his wife, Catherine. Now, if you don't know much about the Salvation Army, I'm sure you probably know the name, and you probably, if you're from the US, you probably see them with the bells in front of Walmart for Christmas and stuff. It is a fantastic organization. It was, at the time of William's death, it was in 58 countries. It might be a bit more now. They were fighting alcoholism. They were training young people on jobs. They really wanted to help, and they purposely took the vocabulary of the army because it was a war. It was a war on alcoholism, on poverty, on prostitution, and all that. That's why you see he was the founder and the first general. So all their jobs were often with the vocabulary of the army. And William Booth, so he's not the only one here. You've got quite a few people from the Booth family. You've got Bramwell Booth down here, Florence Booth, and a lot of people that would have been involved in the Salvation Army. William, when he started the Salvation Army, he basically wanted to go and preach on the streets. He believed there was no need to preach at church. People that are already at church, they're already at church, you know. But that was a very dangerous business. No, Laurie, I'm not allowed in Highgate. You're not allowed to do commercial filming in Highgate, I'm afraid. So yeah, but I've done a video once down there. If you check on my YouTube, and even that is a bit cheeky of me, really. Now, William Booth. So yeah, he would go preaching in Whitechapel, you know, where a lot of people were. A lot of mothers were alcoholics, and a lot of kids were badly treated, and he would go down, but he would get beaten up for preaching on the streets, and actually eventually he had to hire an Irish boxer to protect him, because it could get violent. There's another lady that's buried here as well. She was also part of the Salvation Army. It is a lady called Susanna Beatty. She would also go and preach against alcohol down the street. But the thing is, at the time you had something called the Skeleton Army. That was basically the lobbying of the pub industry. They attacked her. They actually attacked her very badly. She died 5 years later, but she died out of the consequences of the attack by the Skeleton Army. She had said she'd forgive the attackers. But yeah, quite a sad story. And Catherine Booth, she was fighting against young prostitution. You know, at the time, for a long time, the age of consent was 12 years old. 12. Eventually, they managed to bring it back up to 13. 13 years old. Can you imagine? And also, on top of that, that's really bad. But in Victorian times, you know, a lot of the population was contaminated by syphilis, about 15 to 20% of the population. And there was some kind of an urban medical myth that stated that if you had sex with a virgin, you'd be cured from syphilis. So imagine how mad that is. Some young girls were being trafficked and contaminated at the age of 12. So Catherine was fighting against that. There's another lady actually that's buried here. Their graves are probably quite badly deteriorated, but Rebecca Jarrett, she was a young girl that had been trafficked, and she became a sex worker, and then eventually she had a brothel. And with the Salvation Army and the Booth family, as well as another guy, William Steed, He was a journalist. You might remember we spoke about William Stead before because of the case of the mummy at the British Museum, the cursed mummy. But William Stead had done great work to help bring the age of consent a bit higher. Well, great work. It's very controversial. Let me tell you what they've done. Rebecca and William Stead, they basically wanted to prove a case. So they went to see a mother in West London that was an alcoholic, and they bought her daughter, 13 years old, for £5. We're talking nearly £600 in today's money, so not much at all. They were under the impression that the mother definitely understood what was going to happen to the daughter. She was going to be sold into prostitution. You know, she was going to be trafficked, and they took the young girl to a brothel. There were some accomplices, and William Stead pretended to be a customer. He actually drank a bottle of champagne when he was a teetotaler, but he really wanted to pass as a customer, and he bought a bit of time with the young virgin. He took her into a room. She had been drugged, by the way. He didn't do anything to her. I mean, according to what he said, of course. But she screamed when she woke up because, of course, she was in a room with a stranger. And then she was trafficked into France. But then she was actually taken by the Salvation Army in France, and she was rescued and everything. But it was all to prove a point. And then after that, he wrote an article, of course, about his experience, and he managed to prove how easy it was really to buy a 13-year-old virgin in Victorian times. So thanks to him, there was an act of parliament in 1885 that brought the age of consent to a bit 16. But sadly, he and Rebecca were jailed for at least 5 months. Well, Rebecca 5 months, I don't know about William. And the astonishing thing is that the politician that managed to get them jailed and persecuted, I mean, they had some public sympathy, but at the end of the day, they still abducted a girl, right? The guy that got them persecuted, he was actually arrested himself he was involved in the Cleveland Street scandal. So he was himself an abuser of young boys. Anyway, so that's to tell you the type of crazy but useful work that the Salvation Army and their accomplices would do. Anyway, we are now in front of the Frank Bostock lion. The lion, you might know a similar one in Highgate Cemetery. I think that was actually his grandfather. Frank Bostock, he had a menagerie. He had a lot of lions. He loved these animals, but let me see if I've got a photo of Frank. Yeah, there he is. So that's Frank on his lions. He probably didn't exactly treat them as we would find acceptable today. He didn't have only lions, he had chimps as well, chimpanzees that would be driving cars on his shows and stuff. He had kangaroos as well. He's actually the one that invented kangaroo boxing. If you've not seen kangaroo boxing videos, you've not missed anything. It's really not okay. Well, the good thing is usually the kangaroo always wins, but it's basically a human boxing a kangaroo. At the time they would find it funny to watch this type of shows. I think some people still do on YouTube or on bad social media platforms. But anyway, he's the one that created this type of show, and he was a very popular man. When he died, he had a massive funeral, and they had done a massive flower panel, one in the shape of a lion, one in the shape of a kangaroo. Yeah, poor kangaroos. But Janie, they always win anyway. They're so much stronger than humans, so at least that's a little bonus. Anyway, let me show you the chapel. So again, non-denominational. So you could, at the time, you could come and have a burial here from any religion, really. And it's very It's been completely redone. You might remember the first time I did this walk, like years ago now, it was quite run down and everything. Now they've redone it. Now they use it as a little space for workshops, you know, for nature workshops with kids and stuff like that. Now, this area might look a bit familiar if you know your Amy Winehouse video clips. Let me show you some images. So that's the clip of Back to Black. We only say goodbye with words. I died 1,000 times when you go back. I don't know what you've missed. Sorry, I've lost you for a sec. But I was saying Amy Winehouse, she actually lived in this area when she was a little girl. Just above the cemetery is Stamford Hill. That's a very Jewish area. Her dad, Mitchell, the cab driver, he was originally from Stoke Newington. Although now she's much more associated with Camden Town, of course. But she did live here at some point. Now, this would have been the catacombs at some point underneath, but they're closed up now. And let's go to England. At the time, you wouldn't be able to be educated at Oxford or Cambridge if you didn't follow the Church of England. So he had to be educated in a dissenter school down here, and he lived on the site with his wife. So that's the man that pretty much inspired the cemetery, Isaac Watt. Oh, thanks, Linda. That's very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Now, let me show you another gentleman down here. His monument has been redone, so it's gonna look fairly modern. It's not. It's from 1909, but they've cleaned up the monument. It is a guy called William Frederick Tyler. And you might have guessed from the monument, he was a police officer. Next to him is a little boy buried. His name is Ralph Jocelyn. He also died in the same incident. So William Fred Tyler was a police officer that worked that died on a work day. It's actually thanks to him that they created the Medal of Police Gallantry, I think it's called. He was the first one to get it, well, post-mortem, sadly. But let me tell you what happened. Let's go down towards the main road. He was sadly part of the 1909 Tottenham outrage. That was an incident that happened in 1909. So we're just like 15 minutes down from Tottenham. If you take a left out of the cemetery straight up, you'll end up in Tottenham. And at that point, there was a big rubber factory down there. They were producing rubber for tires, car tires or motorcycles tires. And the factory workers, they would be paid on a Saturday. So on a Saturday, there was one guy that would go down to the bank, get the cash to pay all the employees. We believe on that day he was carrying about, today, according to the app, it is better. Let me know if it's not. So I was saying the guy was collecting the money to pay the employees at the rubber factory on a Saturday in 1909 when he was attacked by two gentlemen, well, two guys, I wouldn't call them gentlemen, with guns. And one of them fired. The guy with the cash, he took a split of a second to realize he had not been hit. He was safe, but the money bag was gone. Now that happened to be pretty much right in front of the Tottenham police station. So all the police officers started to come out. Some jumped on a bicycle, some were on foot, some were in cars, and they started a chase. So those two robbers, they were actually not any thieves. They were Latvian revolutionaries. That was not an act of terror, but they were actually trying to raise some money for their campaigns and stuff. And they started a chase that might sound almost comical, really, because the robbers, they were on foot, and then they jumped in a car, and then they jumped in a tram. The police officers jumped in the next tram, and eventually they put their gun on the ticket inspector, they were like, you drive this way. He had never done that. He was not a cab driver. And a tram driver, I should say. And some people started to chase them as well. So a lot of the members of the public were also running after them. And then eventually the tram driver said, oh, we're going towards the police station here. So the two thieves jumped off, and then they started on foot. Then there was a milk delivery guy, and they stole his vehicle. And people were chasing them. There was a lady that was throwing potatoes at the robbers. And the chase went on for 6 miles. All the way to Walthamstow. At the time, Tottenham was pretty much the end of London. I mean, in the north, you'd have a bit of like field area before the village of Edmonton. So they ended up in the countryside bit. They crossed the river Chigward, and they ended up in the Walthamstow marshes and everything. So it was all a bit wetland, and eventually, when they realized they were in big trouble, the police officers shot themselves. Not the police officers, sorry, the thieves took their own lives, both of them. The thing is, over the 6 mile chase, a lot of gunshots were fired. We believe 400 in total, and 2 people had been killed. PC Tyler, the police officer we've just seen the grave of, as well as the young boy, the little Ralph Jocelyn. So, yeah, it sounds almost like comical because it sounds a bit like a cartoon, you know, jumping on a tram, jumping on a bicycle, and being hit by potatoes. But at the end of the day, 4 people lost their lives. The police officer, the little boy, as well as the two thieves, of course. And the money bag, it was never recovered. It is believed that it might have been dropped in the river or in the marshland. So if you wanted to go treasure hunting, you know where to go. If you have a diver's outfit, or if you have maybe a metal detector or anything, there might still be quite a bit of money in the marshland of Hackney, or in the river Chigward. Now, you know what? I'm gonna try not to say anything too interesting before we take a left, actually, because I know this road can be a little bit noisy. Stupid tomatoes, not around here, I'm afraid. Now, we're going up towards Stamford Hill, so that's the area. That's quite a Jewish area today. Ultra-Orthodox, so you might see some beautiful hats. You know, those the guys often have those black hats, almost like top hats, and the boys might have those. I don't know what you call them. Those long hair on the side. It's today it's one of the most Jewish areas in London. And we're going down that way because I've got a little murder mystery for you. Well, if you consider it to be a mystery, it's sadly not. I mean, sadly someone was hanged for it, although I'm not sure she deserved it. But I'll tell you as we go. I'm just gonna wait because it's noisy down here. It's gonna be much quieter as we take a left. See the station across the street? So this is Stoke Newington station. So that's on the overground. There's no, you don't have much underground station in this part of Hackney. Well, you could go all the way up to Seven Sisters, but that's quite far up.
Yeah.
Oh, Linda, that's around you in Walthamstow. If you want to look for the treasure, you could have a go. Now, it should be much quieter as we take a left down here. So, let me tell you the tragic case of Louise Massey. Louise was half French lady. She She was pretty much raised in London, but her mother was French, and her mother was English, her dad was French, Etienne Massé, and she had fallen pregnant, illegitimate, in Paris. That's when she moved back to England because of the shame, and the stigma that were attached with an illegitimate pregnancy. Not that it was better than here; it was the same in Paris or in London, but at least they probably wouldn't know where the baby was coming from. She never actually really told anyone who the dad was. All we know is it was a chap in Paris called Maurice. Now the little boy, Manfred, he was 3.5 years old. Louise, she lived here. I'll show you the house in a moment, with her sister Leonie. She did not have to pay her rent, and she was not in money troubles. She would give piano. She was a great pianist. She would give piano lessons and get money for that, and she would also teach French. And she next door, you had her mother living with a lodger. I'll show you both of the buildings in a moment. And the little boy, Louise, wanted to work, so she gave him to a nanny. She had placed an ad in the newspaper, and she found a nanny to take care of him for a good price. So he was most of the time living with the nanny, a lady in Tottenham, so just 15 minutes walk from here. And she would go and visit the little boy every Wednesday. She'd take him down to the park, Tottenham Green, and then she would bring him back to the nanny. Now, Louise, she was 36 at that point, and the mother living next door, she had a lodger, a French guy called Eudore. I've never heard that name before, Eudore. Didn't even know it was a French name. And Eudore was 19 years old, so she was a bit of a cougar. And she started to have an affair with Eudore. As far as we know, she had told him the truth about the little boy, that she had had an illegitimate boy, and he was like, okay, thanks for being honest, but I don't want to hear more about him. That was it. He didn't say you'd have to get rid of him, or I don't want him in my life. He didn't say any of that. He just said, okay. At that point, their relation was the very beginning anyway. And one day, the nanny received a letter. It was from Louise. She said she had decided to take the little boy back. Let me show you Manfred. There he is. That's literally taken on the day when he died. The nanny received a letter saying that Louise was going to take Manfred back because she wanted him to have an education in France. So she was going to send him back to his dad in Paris. Of course, the nanny was gutted because she'd grown quite fond of little Manfred. She loved him, and she'd been with him for many years. Obviously, there's nothing she could have done. It was not her boy. So she agreed to give little Manfred back to Louise. They met in front of a pub on the main road where we were earlier, and off she went. Louise with little Manfred. She take him down allegedly to New Haven, where they would have boarded a ship to go down to France. Now, before we go much further, let me show you another letterbox. This one says GR, so that's for George V. You might wonder why there's no 5 then. It's because at the time of George IV, you did not have any letterboxes yet, or post boxes, so he doesn't need to put the number down. Now, back to Manfred. So they jumped on a bus. So the nanny waved them goodbye. The nanny had given her a few items of clothing, of course, for Manfred, a few toys. He had a little toy scale that he really loved. And off they went in a bus. I say a bus, it's not really a bus. It was like a double-decker bus, but you know, it was on tracks, dragged by horses at the time, at the very end of the 19th century. We are, to give you an idea, in 1899. And so they went, they left. Now, what we do know is that a bit later, Louise and Manfred were seen at London Bridge Station. Sorry. They were seen at London Bridge Station in the ladies' waiting room. The attendant in the waiting room saw them. Little Manfred was not happy. She did actually ask the mother. She was like, "Oh, why is he sad?" And the mother said, "Oh, he's missing his nanny. And he might feel a bit better if I buy him a cake." So she went to buy him a piece of cake. And the staff at the station, she was like, "Oh, are you going on a train?" And Louise said, "No, I'm waiting for somebody." And eventually, Louise and little Manfred left the waiting room. They believed whoever they were waiting for might be in the other waiting room. And that was it. Now, about an hour and a half later, in Dalston Station, so down this side, so 20 minutes or even more from London Bridge, two ladies got off of a train. They have been to some kind of a lecture, and one lady needed to pee. So they went into the ladies' room, and at the time it was very dark down there, you know, because you'd only lit it up with a little candle or whatever it might be, or a lamp. And the door is not opening. There's something blocking the door. She looked on the floor, and she saw what she described as maybe a little face, but that wasn't possible. There couldn't be a child down there. So she concluded that there was a lady struggling, a lady on the floor that was unwell. So she went back on the platform and she told the porter, station porter, "I think there's a lady struggling in the cubicles." That was it. They left. And then the porter went into the toilets, and sadly, he went with a torch or a gas lamp, maybe, whatever they had at the time. And he found the body of the little boy. Little Manfred had been placed there with there was a black shawl covering his body. His face was bruised. He had been hit by a brick. The brick was still there. And well, at first the police didn't really know where to start, because no child had been reported missing. So eventually they did like they would always do. They posted a description in the press. And on the Monday, so that happened on the Friday, on the Monday, the nanny, she read the newspapers, and she was like, "Oh God, could that be my little Manfred?" So she went to the mortuary, and she identified the body. It was indeed Manfred. And well, of course, the police was now suspecting Louise. And they actually came here, so they had an address, 19 Bethan Street. That's where we are, on Bethan Street. And they knocked at the door. Allegedly, Louise was not there. She had gone away with some customers. And the police was not going to take no for an answer. So they kind of hid down the street here, waiting for anyone to come in and out of the house. When two men came out, and they followed them until the train station, and they bought a couple of train tickets. The police officers were like, "We want a ticket for the same place." They were actually on their way down to Croydon. Eventually, they identified themselves as police officers, and those two men took them to Croydon, where Louise was hiding. She was apparently in great distress, because she had seen in the newspaper that her little boy was dead. Now, she explained to the police that the story about the boy going to France was indeed a lie. She did not want the nanny to be offended, so she had made up a story about the boy going to France. She actually had, what happened is on a Wednesday afternoon when she took her little boy to the park, she had been chatting to two ladies that claimed they were going to open a new school in Chelsea. And they said they would be more than happy to take such a cute and well-mannered little boy to their school for £12 a year. And Louise actually, she had, it had been a while, and that is true because she told her sister and stuff, she started to question the education that little Manfred was getting with his nanny, and she wanted him to have a better education. So she actually took up their offer. She was meant to go and visit the school, but that didn't happen. And then eventually she planned to go down to Brighton for the weekend because she had also told family that little Manfred was going to France. So she had to disappear for a few days. And anyway, she was going to meet those two ladies at London Bridge Station. She was going to pay them the £12 for the year, and they were going to take little Manfred for their new school in Chelsea. And I know today it might sound absolutely mad to leave your little boy to a stranger, but let's not forget you'd pay someone to take them away and take care of them, and so it doesn't seem that mad. Anyway, there was quite a lot of evidence against her. The thing that were quite damning is that the attendant at the train station, she claimed, so Louise said she took the 4 o'clock down to Brighton, so she couldn't have committed the murder. But the attendant at the station, back to Louise, this is the house. So number 29, that's this one, so that's where Louise lived, and her mother and Adore, they lived next door at number 31. Now, yeah, the evidence. So first, there was you had the witness at the train station that claimed she had seen Louise again. So then the timing would give her the time to commit the murder. Then at Brighton train station, they found a little package with some items of clothing of the poor little boy. Not all the clothing, though. I think I'll show you the picture again. I think that was just the hat and the shirt or whatever, but no shoes, nothing, just 2 items of clothing that were easily identifiable because that photo was taken the day before he died because the nanny wanted a souvenir of the boy that she was going to let go, you know. And with the signal today, oh, it's better now. Yeah, the thing that was quite damning was really the parcel of clothing at the waiting room left behind in Brighton station. How could that have got there? If indeed she gave the little boy to those 2 ladies. So Louise was hanged. She was sent to Newgate and she was hanged. She was the first lady to be hanged in the 20th century. Now, I told you at the beginning of the story that I believed her to be innocent. I think she was. I know so far it looks quite damning, and the police didn't believe her story for 1 minute. They believed it was just that, just a story. But what we do know now is that there were 2 baby farmers that were caught a year later. You might remember them. We talked about them when I did a tour in Angel about baby farming. 2 ladies, Annie Walter and Emmeline Sash. You might remember I told you Amy Walters, she got caught because she moved in with a police officer, and she was actually, you know, when you are a criminal and you're killing babies, why do you move in with a police officer? I mean, that's silly. But she was actually caught disposing of a little body in a bin. So this is the type of people we were dealing with. And those 2 ladies, they would kind of match the description. One was a bit older. The ladies down here, they pretended to be sisters, the Browning sisters. So maybe, I mean, there's a little possibility that Louise's story might have been true, and she might have given little Manfred to 2 ladies, terrible baby farmers that would have eliminated him. And if indeed that was the case, those ladies were aware that Louise was going down to Brighton for the weekend. could they have disposed of could they have jumped on a train to Brighton to dispose of 2 of the items of clothing in the waiting room to incriminate Louise? That's completely possible. If anything, if you ask me, it's even likely. Because otherwise, why did it, if Louise had successfully disposed of every other items of clothing, why would she have left 2 in the Brighton waiting room, the place where they could be easily identified? And also there was a letter to Maurice, the French ex, where she had asked him for £12 for a year for an education for the little boy. £12, that's exactly the price she claimed the ladies were asking. And also when she came to Brighton, she didn't meet a door straight away, came the next morning. She allegedly went for a dinner, and she couldn't really recall what she ate, but bearing in mind you're asking her what she ate 2 months later, when she probably just had tea on bread and butter. But those guys, they did confirm that there was, on that evening, they only served 1 lady alone and 1 guy alone. And they did say they could recognize her, but they were not actually called for evidence. So really, the only thing that's quite damning against her is the testimony of the attendant at London Bridge Station that claims they have seen her again. But we know. Now, before we go, this is another letterbox, post box, but look, it's missing something. We don't have a royal cipher on this one. So they probably had a door replacement at some point, because usually it's on the door or on the side. So this one, we don't know how old it is. Hi, Gary from the USA, and welcome everyone that just joined. It is gonna be the end of the tour. Let me know in the chat if you have any questions before we go. If not, thank you for coming today. Let me flip the camera around. I hope you enjoyed that little walk in Stoke Newington. If you have any questions, let me know. If not, if you've made it that far into the video, if you were completely new to me or into the live stream, for those of you that are live with me right now, you might want to consider subscribing. Thanks, Tish. Thanks, Jenny. The best way not to miss those live streams, it is to subscribe and hit the little notify me bell, because otherwise they're quite easy to miss, and then you end up yes, that is a mailbox, yeah, a post box. And yeah, then you end up missing the live and watching the replay, which is fun as well, but it's always better to be live. Thanks, Linda. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, Emma. And if any of you dropped me a little tip elsewhere, like on PayPal or on Buy Me a Coffee, that's also equally appreciated. Oh, thanks, Gary, for giving it a like. It's really thanks to your generosity that I can keep going and create more tours and do more research. And if any of you was new to me, welcome to this little community. I hope I'll see you next time in the chat. If you want to see a bit more of me, next Sunday, we're going down to Chiswick. So we'll go for a lovely walk on the riverside. It should be just before sunset, so that should be a beautiful light. And we'll talk about a Jack the Ripper suspect. We'll talk about some mistresses of Charles II. And we'll see some beautiful pubs and beautiful properties on the riverside. Cool. Thank you guys for coming today. And hopefully I'll see some of you on Sunday. And also keep an eye on my videos. I'm meant to, I've been working on a video for a while, but I've been a bit slow. Hopefully it should be posted in the next few days, hopefully. Cool. Have a great evening, guys, or a great morning, a great lunch, whatever time it is for you, wherever you are in the world. And I'm gonna go back down to my bicycle. You might have seen my bicycle on the way. It was right here, so when you see my bicycle, you see it's the end of the tour. I'm gonna cycle straight down to get home, 45 minutes straight down. And bye guys, have a good one, see you soon, bye bye. Thank you for coming, thank you for being so many of you as usual. It's always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Bye bye. Oh, you off to watch the game? Good, enjoy. Go Spain!